back in 2001, I gathered a whole host of people to be part of declaring what we call the Aun Year of 2023 this year. It's a contemporary attempt at recovering those octennial heathen festivals that were held in regional centers such as Lunar here in Zealand and Uppsala in Sweden. So since we made this announcement, there's been a lot of talk about what to do with this today. Because here's the thing, like current scholarship suggests that these festivals were held every 8 years and that this timing rested on the myth of King Aun the Old of Sweden, who sacrificed his sons to Odin one after the other in order to go on living until he was so old and decrepit that he was completely paralyzed and just lying in his bed eating out of a baby bottle, all right? And Vikings, being Vikings, decided to relate to this pretty atrocious myth by their own atrocious sacrificing of a corresponding number of humans. And how the flip can you use that for anything today? Of course you can't. But what you can do is you can look at the deep meanings of the myths and what it calls for from our perspective. And that has been developing in a number of dialogues throughout 2022. And here's what I think today. Aun is rupturing connectivity in this world, right? In a sense, he's comparable to the worms that are gnawing at the roots of the Yggdrasil. His murder of his own family is similar to Hodor's murder of Balder, that fratricide that is such a strong violation of kinship connectivity that it makes the whole world fall apart in the Ragnarok, right? But the Aun myth shows this falling apart not as an apocalyptic final collapse, but rather as a cyclic thing where the human role seems to be calling back the healing into the world, right? These kind of festivals that return, not every year, but after a span of years, they regularly, when you look across cultures, have such a notion of purifying, setting back to an original order, relieving sins, or going back to a primordial connectivity, these kind of aspects. And you see this in Hindu Mela celebration, you see it in Christian and Jewish Jubilee traditions, and from a strict historical perspective, this does remain very speculative, but it does seem very meaningful from a contemporary perspective to dialogue with this ancient complex of myth and practice in this way, to see it as a call for reconnecting that responds or heals that rupture which is expressed in Aun's violation of kinship. One of the chroniclers, Týrsmál of Merseburg, he actually uses a conspicuously similar language when he's describing the purpose of this festival. He says that for the participants, the celebration would do service for them with those who dwell beneath the earth and ensure their forgiveness for any misdeeds. It sounds Christian, but it could also be a Christian language expressing what Christians would express with forgiveness of misdeeds, and that is reconnectivity. Further, the timing of the Aun year, as we have been suggesting throughout 2002, bases itself on the alignment of lunar and solar cycles. An alignment that does happen with an 8-year interval. Now, pre-Christian North European reckoning was lunisolar, and you can see that both from Scandinavian and English material, that and this means that the fluctuations between the moon cycle and the sun cycle, that they are the point. And you know, it's not always full moon, for instance, on Christmas Eve, right? The moon phases fluctuate on the dates. And these fluctuations was the main anchor in how people in our region kept track of time. And when they align, when the lunar year and the solar year align and begin together, then we need actually to insert an extra lunar month in summer. Long story, I'm not going to explain it here. We need an extra lunar month in summer. And point being that the symbolic charge of this alignment of the lunar and solar year is that what do we get? One extra month of summer. And anybody who lives in Northern Europe would know how that would feel. It would feel really good. So there's a symbolic blessing in the alignment of the lunar and the solar cycle. Now, all this might sound kind of speculative. It might even sound speculative if you go to my channel where I'm like explaining it in even more detail and so on. But the fact is that the analytical strength of exactly this proposal for how to do the timing of the octennial heathen festivals is its existential simplicity. It is very locally applicable, very manageable way of organizing this. You just have to look at the sun and the moon. Most other suggestions that I'm aware of would require a contemporary astronomer in order to even start understanding it. So, for this reason, I got together a group of people interested in Nordic tradition and so on to be part of announcing the Aun Year here in 2023. Because the new moon that started this lunar year fell shortly after the winter solstice. So this is one of those years where it would make sense to have the celebration. So we are now encouraging people to celebrate under the auspices of the Aun Year, the Nordic year of healing all those decrepit and ruptured systems that are so characteristic of our age. We are Aun, in a sense, reduced to paralyzed consumer comfort predicated on violence against our kinship with the world, right? And we encourage people to do a couple of things. One of them is that we encourage people to use the Aun rune, which is this here, a symbol of this aligning in 2023 between the lunar and the solar cycle. And you can basically address your usual deities, perhaps, under this symbol. Then you're tying that into this cosmological logic of the healing of this year, the cosmological healing that this year symbolizes. We also encourage oath-taking as just one suggestion for how to work with this. Oath-taking is, in a sense, a way of giving some of yourself. You can almost say it's a sacrifice. It binds you to something. And one suggestion is to do oath-taking that corresponds with the Aun system, perhaps giving up some of those privileges that uphold the rupturing of our time. And we also encourage talking about it and figuring it out. And when you're doing events, or if you know people who are doing events here in 2023, then encourage them to do it under the banner of the Aun Year of Healing in 2023. It is a very beautiful logic of cosmological healing that we're trying to recover into our time with this initiative of the Aun Year. So yeah, it would be totally awesome if you would participate in the ways that you have and in the events that you are organizing or having access to and so on, and basically help taking this octennial celebration back into contemporary culture. Thanks, see you all around.